So we're up to the Mishnah on Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. And the Mishnah is addressing the following situation. We know that if a Nazir became Tameh, he has to be Soser as Nazirus. However, if he already brought his Karbanos, then he needs Tiglachas, and the Nazir cuts his hair off, and then if afterwards he contracts Tumah, that's nothing because he already completed his Nazirus. But what happens if he's in the middle of the process? He's already begun to begin bringing his Karbanos. He has 3 Karbanos to bring. He brought already 1, and then he became Tameh. And the Mishnah records a machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chacham about that very issue. Misha nizrak olav echad min adamim. So after the Nazir completed his Nazirus, he brought his first carbon. There was already his rikas adam on the Mizbeach. And then Vinitma. And we'll soon see a story about that. So he became Tameh. And this was before his Giluach and before he brought the other Karbanos. Rabbi Eliezer omis Sosras HaKol. Now, what this means by Sosras HaKol, we're going to see in the Gemara here. But what it means is that he has to start the process of bringing his Karbanos again. And he'll have to bring a second time, a replacement for that carbon that he brought already. But it does not mean that he has to begin his Nazirus again. The Chacham Omrim Yavi Shar Karbanos V'Toyer. That first carbon was Olalo because they did this Rika when he was still Tahar. And that which they brought as a carbon while he was Tahar is Olalo, that's fine. And then he'll get a chance when he's tar to bring the other karbonos. And the Chacham proved this from the following story. Amrulo, they said to Rabbi Eliezer, Maisa ben Miriam hatar modinis, a woman by the name of Miriam who's an Nazira from the city of Tarmod. A tragic story. Shenizrak aleh echem min adamim. After she completed a Naziris and was in the process of bringing her karbonos, of Siyam Naziris, she brought one of the karbanos, and then Ubo V'Amrula, they told her before she got a chance to do Tiglachas and to bring the other karbanos, Albita Shaisim Sukenis, that her daughter is in a sakana, Veholcha, and unfortunately, when she came, Umotza Shemesa, she found that her daughter had already expired. And she contracted Tumas Mes. The Amru Chachamim, and the Chacham paskin for her, Tavi Shar Karbonosevati Toyer, that all she has to do is bring the rest of the Karbonos, not the one that she already brought, and that's fine. So that's a proof to the Shitas Chachamim against Rabbi Eliezer. And the Gemara says, Ketani, the Tana and Mishnah says Rabbi Eliezer omis Sosras HaKol, and it sounds like, if you read it at first value, that she has to start, or he has to start his Nazirus from the beginning. So the Gemara asks for Amar Rabbi Eliezer. We have another statement from Rabbi Eliezer that Kol Acher Malos, if a Nazir contracts Tumah after he completed and fulfilled his Nazirus for the entire period of time, let's say 30 days, Shiva Soser, then because he contracted Tumah, we'll have to wait until he's Mitayr himself, which is a process that'll take 7 days, and then he'll bring his Karbanos and finish his Nazirus. He doesn't have to begin his Nazirus from the beginning because it was after the malos of his Nazirus that he contracted Tumah. Amarav, my Soser Nami, the Kamar of the lesson. Now we have to reinterpret the word Soser in our Mishnah. And what does it mean, Soser Karbonosov? It means he has to bring the entire series of his karbanos after he becomes tahar, including the one carbon that he had brought when he was tahar. And that carbon will have to be replaced. So the machlokes in our Mishnah is only machlokes vis-a-vis karbanos, according to Rabbi Eliezer, since he contracted tuma, then nisteru hakarbanos is a separate din of stiras hakarbanos, which applies to generate a chiyuv even vis-a-vis that carbon that he brought, bitara. Whereas the chacham hold, no, each carbon is a separate entity. He brought a carbon bitara, and now he is obligated in another two karbanos. Hachinami mistabra. We're going to make a diuk in the language of the Mishnah to support Rav's interpretation of the Mishnah, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, soser doesn't mean soser yimei neziruso, but rather it means soser karbanos of the katani. It says in the Mishnah, v'chachamim omrim tavi shar karbanos of the titar. It doesn't say a word about the yimei nezirus. The chacham should have said a bigger chiddush that it's not soser yimei nezirus. That has more of a profound impact. But rather, it seems that the battleground here between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chacham is only about karbonos. And the Chacham say all he needs to do is bring shar karbonos, whereas Rabbi Eliezer says it's so ser, even that one carbon that he brought bitara. The Mishnah concludes with the Maisa Nami b'mirim atardomis shenizrak alechem and adom bo v'odiu al bito shoysim ufsukes holchov u'motza shemeis yom chachamim tavi shar karbonos sevetitar. Shmamino, we see clearly that there's nothing mentioned here about how you made Nazirus. All that the Chachamim told her, they instructed her, was that she has to bring the balance of her karbonos. And the Bar Plukta, that's the dissenting view of Rabbi Eliezer, he would require bringing all her karbonos. Okay, now we're going to begin in Mitzvah Hashem, the seventh chapter of Masechet Nazir. And this Mishnah here at the beginning of the seventh perek is going to address the issue of what we call mes mitzvah. Kohen Gadol v'Nazir ein mitamim likrovein, as opposed to a Kohen Hedjot, where the Torah explicitly says that he is mitame to his 7 close relatives that died. In the case of the Kohen Gadol, he's not mitame to any of his relatives. And the same din applies to a Nazir as it does to a Kohen Gadol. A Nazir is not mitame to any of his relatives that died. The Nazir and the Kohen Gadol were walking on the road. Umatzu mes mitzvah. Mes mitzvah means a dead body that needs kovrim, someone to bury him. And in this case, it's enough that one of the two, either the Kohen Gadol or the Nazir, will be osek b'kfura shel mes mitzvah. Mes mitzvah is the only mess that overrides the Isur Tumah in the cases of Kohen Gadol and Nazir. And now the issue is, which of these two should be mitame? They don't need both of them to be mitame. One is sufficient. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, yitame Kohen Gadol, v'al yitame Nazir, pilei playim. Rabbi Eliezer holds that the sanctity of the Nazir exceeds that of the Kohen Gadol. And if one of the two has to be mitame, if we have to play triage here, then let the Kohen Gadol be mitame. The Chachamim just the opposite. Yitame Nazir, v'al yitame Kohen Gadol, and not only that, al yitame Kohen Hedjot, meaning that according to the Chachamim, the Kedushas Kahuna, both vis-a-vis the Kohen Gadol and vis-a-vis a Kohen Hedjot, if we integrate them into one entity called Kedushas Kahuna, that is on a superior level of Kedusha to that of a Nazir. Amar lehem Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says to the Chachamim, I'm going to tell you why Yitamu HaKohen, his Kedusha is not a Kedusha Chamura like that of a Nazir. She'eno mevi korban al tumaso. I'll prove it to you. In the case of a Kohen, or for that matter, Kohen Gadol, if he contracts Tuma, he doesn't bring any korbanos. But al yitami Nazir, Nazir is on a higher level of Kedusha, because an event that he contracts Tuma, maybe korban al tumaso, he's obligated to bring korbanos. And that chiyuv is a proof to the fact that his Kedusha, that of a Nazir, supersedes, is greater than that of the Kedusha of a Kohen Hedjot, and even a Kohen Gadol. Now here we have a Chiddush in the name of the Tam HaMelech, that's a commentary on the Rambam, to the effect that the issue here between Rabbi Eliezer and Chacham only revolves around which of the two would be better off to contract tumah, so to speak. Like we would say, to do damage control. But if, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the Nazir would go ahead and be Mitami himself, or according to Chachamim, the Kohen would go ahead and be Mitami himself, there's no violation of the Isur Tumah, because Meis Mitzvah overrides the Isur Tumah both for Nazir and for Kohen Gadol. The only issue is one of Kedima, of priority, of sequence. Amru lo, the Chacham respond to Rabbi Eliezer, you're telling me, Rabbi Eliezer, that Kedushas Nazir is greater than Kedushas Kahuna? Oh, no. Itami and Nazir. I'm going to prove to you that the Kedusha of Nazir is not as great as that of the Kohen. She'ein Kedushas Kedushas Olam, that in most circumstances the Nazir is Kadosh for X amount of time, after which his Kedusha terminates. V'al Yitami Kohen She'kedushas Kedushas Olam. But a Kohen has a greater, more intense Chamura Kedusha because his Kedusha is a Kedusha's Olam. There is never, ever a termination to the Kedusha of Kahuna. And the Gemara says, Bishlema, I understand Kohen Gadol and Nazir. Okay. In the case of a Kohen Gadol and Nazir, we have a machlokas between Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer. Hi, Sover Kohen Chacham, Kohen Gadol Adif, his Kedusha supersedes that of a Nazir, therefore let the Nazir become Tomei. V'hai Sover Rabbi Eliezer holds, no, Nazir Adif, his Kedusha is greater than that of a Kohen. And as we said before, because if he contracts Tumah, he brings Korbanos. And therefore let the Kohen be Matame. Okay, all that we know from the Mishnah. But there are other situations, some of which we know and some of which we don't know. Here's a situation where we know. And that's going to be where there are two categories of Kohen Gadols, and we have to choose which one has a greater Kedusha, because they're both going on the derech, and they encounter a mes mitzvah, who should be metame. What are the categories of Kohen Gadol? One is called a Kohen Gadol Mashuach B'Shemen HaMishcha. He was appointed through Mashicha B'Shemen HaMishcha. And if we take a look at Rashi at the end of Sefer Shmos, in Perek Lamed, with regard to meaning of a Kohen Gadol Yidei Mashicha, Rashi points out, Shemashichasan hi ligdula, that Mashicha indicates greatness. V'chein yisad malko shalom sheteichinuch gedulaso. So that's the Kedusha of Mashicha. And now we go on to a second category of Kohen Gadol, who is not Nimshach B'Shemen HaMishcha.